Hello, so today I'm just sharing about what's been happening in our lives this week and what I've been learning through it. So my last two videos I talked about how things in life is uncertain, and even when we think it's certain, that often it's not, or things can just change anyway. So we should trust in God and not in what we think is going to happen. But I had to laugh last night because school had finally told me that I didn't need help with Lydia, so I thought, I finally knew what I was doing. And then last night, the last day of the holidays, one of the teachers rang up and said that they were stuck. They didn't have anybody for Lydia from 11:30 onwards today, and would I be able to come in and look after her? So I was happy to do that, and so that's what I've been doing today. And now they have actually rostered me in so that I am working a certain amount of time every week. So it just made me laugh, because it just proved my point of how uncertain everything is, and even when you think you know exactly what's happening, things can change. So it reminded me of that verse in Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 27 verse 1. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what the day may bring forth. So that is a good verse to remember of when we think we know what's happening and we make our plans and we think we have everything under our control, but we shouldn't. Lydia's got the salt. So I had to laugh again today because there was another thing that I thought I was not needed to help with, and then I got an email this morning asking if I could actually help with it. So what this thing was, when we came back from holiday a few weeks ago, I just walked in the door, and I always feel a little bit overwhelmed when I come home from being away because there's suitcases everywhere and there's just stuff everywhere, and until it all gets put away and back in its place, I always feel a bit overwhelmed. So anyway, we just walked in the door, and keep in mind, I still didn't know what was happening at school, if I needed to teach Lydia, and I'd also been asked to help at a preschool. Our school has a preschool one morning a week, and that's where our children used to go every Wednesday morning. So I was going to help with preschool if I didn't have to work with Lydia on that day. So anyway, when I walked in the door, I got a text from somebody asking me if I would be willing and able, if needed, to help teach the Bible at our school. And so anyway, I was thinking about that, and they kind of needed a quick answer because I couldn't think about it for a few days, so I kind of needed to give a quick answer. And so although I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I just said yes, if I'm able, if I'm not too busy looking after Lydia, I would be willing to do it. And then I was thinking about it, thinking, oh, should I have said that? Like, how do I know what I'm supposed to do? Was it the right thing to say? And anyway, I have that little Bible verse calendar, and because we'd been away, it was still on the date for when we'd left. And so I changed it to the day that we were now on, but before I did, I prayed and I asked God to speak to me with the verse. And I found that when you pray that, when you ask God to speak to you, you are more likely for it to speak to you. It just, makes you more aware, and God says to ask and it shall be given you. And there's also the verse with Samuel, speak, Lord, for your servant heareth. It's a good prayer to pray whenever you're reading the Bible, that God will speak to you. But anyway, so here I was wondering whether I'd said the right thing about teaching the Bible. This was the verse, and it was such a clear answer that it brought tears to my eyes. It was just so neat. And it was, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. So that was really neat. It just gave me confirmation that I had given the right answer, and that God would be with me if He wanted me to do this. But then I never heard anything more about it, and school started yesterday, so I thought, oh, they must not need me. And then I thought, well, why did God give me such a clear verse if I don't even need to do it? But then I thought, well, maybe He was just giving me confirmation that, because I prayed, like, did I make the right decision? Did I say the right thing? So I thought maybe God just, just kind of answered my question, that I had given the right answer. But then this morning I got a message saying that we're still looking for someone, and would I want to help with doing that. But there are some times that God may give us a really clear verse about something, and then later on it may not seem to happen, or things might change, and sometimes that can be quite confusing. Like when I was a teenager, I was sure, and I felt like God had made it very clear that He wanted me to go overseas and be a missionary in other countries. but that's not the way things happened, and it can feel very confusing. And another example is that book I read a few weeks ago, To Die Is Gain by Stephanie Wesco. And her and her husband had gone over to Africa as missionaries, and they were sure that's where they were supposed to go, that's where God had guided them, and they thought they were going to be there for the rest of their lives. But within 2 weeks the husband got killed, and the wife and the children all had to go back to America. They had to leave their country because, I don't know, there was troubles there. And for her that was very confusing, because she thought that's where God wanted them to be, and it was, but only for 2 weeks. But yeah, it can be really confusing to understand what God is doing in situations like that. And there was also that verse God gave me, which I shared back in the one called Trusting God Guide. I said how I've been praying about what I should tell the school about whether I could teach Lydia this term or not, and how I really wasn't sure about it. But then I found this verse that I was reading in a book, and I wasn't even thinking about it at the time, but the author of the book had shared the verse. It was a verse that God had spoken to her, but it was the one where the princess said to Moses' mum, "Go take this child, nurse it, and I will give you wages to look after this child." And so for me that really gave me confirmation that it was okay for me to say that I could teach Lydia. But then when I heard that I wasn't needed, that for me I kind of felt confused again. Why did God give me such a clear verse and then me not even need to do it? And okay, things have changed again now. I am helping at school again, but even if it hadn't, I think it could still be that God sometimes gives you clear verses just to help you know you've done the right thing or made the right decision, even though it might change further along. And one of my sisters once gave an illustration, like years and years ago, and it's kind of stuck with me, and it's something I remind myself of sometimes. And she said, if you're going in a car, like say you're going north somewhere, you know, you might be going this way, and then you might turn onto another road, and you might go that way for a while, and then you might turn onto another road and go that way. But first, when you're going this way, you can get very confused if you suddenly change course and it seems like you're going in a different direction. But like if you're traveling somewhere, you don't always stay on the same road the whole entire trip. Often you go from one road to another road, and like each road gets you to the next road, which gets you to the next road, which in the end gets you to where you're supposed to be going. And sometimes it can be like that in life. We may go and do one thing, God makes it very clear, but then things might change. We may go in another direction, and then it might change again, and we can feel confused because we think, well, way back there God told me to do this, or God made it very clear I was supposed to do that, and why have things changed? And yet that can just be part of the path that God has for you. I said a few weeks ago how our life can be like being in a car and on a road. And yeah, that's what happens when you are going on a journey. You don't always stay on the same road, and sometimes you seem to change directions all the time. But if you are following God and you are obeying God and you are reading His Word and praying, then you can trust God to guide you. And another verse, another thing, I did share this on my Encouragement for Busy Mums vlog, and I am making it into a song video, but I haven't finished that yet. But when we were back up at my parents', my sister and her husband sang a song at church, and I really like the words of it, and I'll just read the chorus. It says, by the pathway of duty flows the river of God's grace. And I found that thought very encouraging, especially as it's kind of getting quite busy for me, to just remember that along the pathway of duty, when you're doing what God wants you to do, there is the river of God's grace flowing next to it. So even though it may be busy and sometimes overwhelming, that God's river of grace is there to give us all that we need. And I read a verse this morning, well, two different verses. The first one is, the night is coming when no one can work. So we're not always going to be able to do what we have opportunity to do now, and so we need to take the opportunities that we do have. And the other verse is, whatever your hands finds to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. So that verse says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. So do it the best that you can. So for me, that means taking up these different opportunities. But for you, it might be doing something else. It might be working on the farm, or working a job, or it might be still doing schoolwork, or it might be homeschooling your children. Yeah, whatever it is, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might, do it the best that you can. Because one day we won't have those opportunities again. And there are two other verses. One is, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. So whatever we do, we should do for God's honor and God's glory. And the other one is, whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord. So whatever God has given us to do, even if it seems very insignificant or very small, we should do it with all our might, we should do it with all our heart, and do it unto God for the glory of God. A good money saving tip is to not forget about what you're growing in the garden. I completely forgot that we had corn on the cob. So anyway, I've got some out, so we'll try to remember to eat it before it gets too old. We also have tomatoes in the garden, so I am making some tomato soup. This is quite a good recipe. It's from one of our Dutch cookbooks. So I think it might already be on my blog, so I will link that or type it out if it's not on there. So first I'm just boiling the water, and then I'll tip the water out and put cold water on it to get off the skins easily, because my kids don't really like skins in soup. Did you like going to school today?
Yeah.
Is it nice?
Yes.
You happy?
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing with Mummy's cutlery?
Yeah.